What's going on, people? Hello, hello. This is something we've known about for a little bit. I don't know if Crit Cakes mentioned it on his stream. He's probably people have asked. He's probably mentioned it already. Excuse me. But Fury Warrior Mountain Thane specifically has actually been overperforming. Funnily enough. They did just buffed Thunderclap and Thunderblast by 25%. However, what we assumed what was going to happen is there is currently a bug with this talent, seismic reverberation. Normally, like it says here, it's supposed to do 30% of the damage of the primary hit, right? When you hit at least 3 or more targets. So, it's supposed to do 30. It does 70% of the normal hit. So T-Clap and T-Blast are doing very, very well, and prioritizing Bloodthirst and AoE on Mountain Thane is also doing very, very well because of how much, or how good T-Clap and T-Blast are doing because of that seismic reverberation bug. So, we thought they were going to fix this bug when this recent round of tuning came out. Because obviously, ability buff by 25%, they're buffing the base value of it. That's going to be good. So, okay, they're going to buff the base value of it because this bug has been in the game for a little bit. And they're going to fix seismic reverberation. When in fact, they buffed it by 25% and did not fix seismic reverberation. So, I was just like, you know what? We'll actually talk about it because it's kind of fun, kind of interesting. The easiest way to see is, so I'll go in and I'll hit the mob with T-Clap, right? Hit the mob with T-Clap, but when you pop this out under, this is the initial hit, and this is the seismic hit. One thing that's interesting, I've never seen the seismic hit actually crit. I don't know if it can. Because I've actually never seen the seismic portion of this ability crit at all. Doesn't seem to, even though, which is very weird. It should be able to crit, but I guess that's also maybe another bug applied to it. But if we use, I think this button still has Whirlwind, right? But if we use Whirlwind, here, I need a clean, I have to wait for the Suffocating Darkness to fall off because I need a clean hit on it. So we'll T-Clap once, and then we'll Whirlwind once. And then Whirlwind did get buffed recently. But you'll notice that this Whirlwind hit... Wait, what? Sorry, one sec. This is... Okay, there we go. It just looked very, very weird. So, they did recently buff Whirlwind for Fury, so it actually does a lot more damage. This is especially a buff for Slayer, because we were starting to hit in single target slam over Whirlwind, and that just felt kind of terrible and dumb. So they just buffed Whirlwind baseline by over 100% for Fury and Arms. Whirlwind is kind of a weird ability where it's like, the buff is really nice, but how do we get to the point where an ability is so bad that they're buffing it by over 100%? I think Fury's got buffed by 120%. But you can see that while the Whirlwind hit, something that's also very fun about Whirlwind. Whirlwind is a multi-hitting ability. So you're noticing that this ability is hitting 30 times, because it hits every target 6 times, right? All 5 targets hits them 6 times. So it hits it by 30, so you would assume it would replicate those 30 hits, because they're all hitting 5 targets by the 30%. But it actually doesn't. Whirlwind only replicates a single hit. So it makes Whirlwind even worse in AoE, so you can see the difference here. This is how much Seismic is giving to Whirlwind, even though it should be giving somewhere near here. If I had to guess, with an actual 30% with it not being bugged. So not only is it bugged negatively, it's also not positively bugged by doing the 70% damage it's supposed to do. So when we undo T-Clap, you can see that it is not only doing the hit, but it is doing about 70% of the hit. And this also applies to Thunder Blast as well. Let me proc a T-Blast. All right, we got a T-Blast, and then we'll show the damage difference here. So we have one Thunderclap, one Whirlwind, one T-Blast. T-Blast. And you can see T-Blast does a ton of damage, but just like Thunderclap, excuse me, it has that similar amount of breakdown by having that 70% damage buff. So, funnily enough, Fury currently one of the worst AoE specs for dungeons, specifically because of the high target counts. For dungeons specifically, is actually one of the most one of the worst AoE specs in the game currently. And that is with a positive bug and a buff and a 25% buff to Thunderblast and Thunderclap. So Slayer will still suffer from this Whirlwind change because it's simply just like, look, it just does no damage, man. It just does no damage. The base hit of Whirlwind does decent damage, but if they fix the seismic reverberation of it, it would probably be way better. One thing that would be interesting, and I wonder if it would be a fun build, is in arms with seismic reverberation. If, right, big if, so Whirlwind also got a buff for arms, but we generally don't use it. The only times we ever really used it were before, but they changed it so you replace Cleave with Whirlwind, or Cleave replaces Whirlwind, which is what they did in the kind of talent shuffle, because they're like, well, why would you even have these two buttons? It doesn't make sense. However, if they actually fixed seismic reverberation, so every single hit of Whirlwind actually got that seismic reverberation buff, one thing that would be very interesting is if it did that, depending on how they coded it. We also have Fervor of Battle. If Cleaver Whirlwind hits 2 or more targets, your slam also hits the primary target. So imagine a very weird world where we could go into, where if you could throw out a Ravager, then you could spam Whirlwind and just shotgun cleaves on everything around you. Imagine the amount of 2-target prow you'd have if every hit of cleave did a seismic reverberation, which also proc Fervor of Battle. That would be kind of cool. Kind of a really cool interaction. Actually, it might be, or could be down the line, overpowered and kind of like unintended, which is probably why it'll never happen. But that's something fun to think about for Cleave. But yeah, no, that's basically it. Currently, Fury, even though it is overperforming by a significant amount because of the Thunderclap and Thunderblast changes in AoE, still one of the worst in the game. I mean, we've all talked about target cap, right? I don't think there's anything else to really say about it. I think target cap... Well, one of the reasons why I believe target cap is a failed experiment isn't because, I want to do more damage, right? It's not even because of that. It's honestly simply, I think if they keep target caps like this in the game, it feels like it actually hinders dungeon. It could, or technically should hinder dungeon design. I don't know if it ever will. But when you look at something like Cinderbrew Meadery, right, and you see all these mobs, these are just the main mobs, by the way. This isn't even all the little patrons and all the little guys around, right? So you see all these mobs. Isn't it more fun to just be able to hit more stuff? Which technically Thunderblast and Thunderclap do. You just primary rotation doesn't. But I feel like if they want to design things around target cap, which I don't think they do actually design around that, which is why we get dungeons like this. But if they end up designing around target caps, I think it will actually mean we don't get dungeons like Priory, which is, while difficult, one of the coolest dungeons in the entirety of the game. What an amazing area. Amazing set, big cool stained glass window, cool fights. Like, we wouldn't get a Priory, we wouldn't get a Cinderbrew. These dungeons are very difficult, but they are they're simply also really, really cool. And if they start designing around target caps, we might not get things like this anymore. Which is why one of the reasons why I think target capping is definitely a failed experiment. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of it. I just kind of want to talk a little bit about seismic reverberation because they'll eventually probably fix this. I didn't talk about it before just because I assumed they would, but now that they've buffed the abilities and also haven't fixed it, I do wonder if they fix it, they're actually probably looking into what they can do to actually buff Warrior's AoE. I do think that the Whirlwind change and the Thunderblast change are a step in the right direction, or at least to me, show that they look at and realize, hey man, something's not going right here. The class is just simply not providing enough, right? So I'm hoping it's just something they're looking at, a step in the right direction. I think there is a world where maybe they increase the target cap, or it's very odd because I think one of the problems with making Warrior even more powerful at 5 targets, like maybe they could do something where like improve Whirlwind instead of 55, maybe they just increase that percentage. Maybe we turn into the new meme Shadow Priest where Psychic Link gets +5, -5% all the time. That could be a tuning knob if they want to keep this 5% kind of thing, where we can really, even if we're doing primary damage, we're still doing a lot of damage to things around us. That could be potentially a problem for Raid, which is why it might be a tuning knob they might not mess with. But I don't know. There's many things they could do. I'm very curious to see what they decide to do. One thing I am somewhat worried about for Warrior is essentially this talent shuffle we got is all we're gonna get. Is the thing I'm kind of worried about for the class, because I feel like the way arms works and how it does, like it's functional, but I don't really think it's fun. The way Arms Slayer works, where you're playing the classes. I mean, you're playing the class, but a significant amount of your performance can be dictated to whether or not you just get enough Slayer Strike procs and you keep Ashen Juggernaut at 15 stacks. Like, there are things you can do as a player to keep those stacks. For example, if you really, really wanted to parse for arms on Rick Reverb, you could just tell one of your friends, hey, get MC during the intermission, and I'm just going to use you to keep Slayer stacks up by executing you. Could do it. That's possible. Like, you could do that. Because you can't hit the boss during the intermission, so you could sacrifice a couple people just for you on keeping the Slayer, keeping that Ashen Juggernaut up. But I think that style of gameplay kind of sucks. I think the fact that we're playing around weak auras a lot for arms kind of sucks. It's kind of boring. The gameplay of it is also, like, I think one of the best parts of arms gameplay is honestly how it plays in dungeons with Colossus. Playing around Battlelord feels really good. One of the things I really look at in terms of Warrior that I want it to feel powerful is I think Warrior actually needs, if they decide to change things and rustle things up and maybe add some stuff to our talent trees, one thing I think Warrior, DPS Warrior specifically, really needs is a good proc. A really good proc, right? Like, we look at Unbridled Ferocity, it's like, yeah, it's a good proc. It's just a little more rage. The extra wreck doesn't do, like, that much for us. Recklessness as a cooldown is kind of boring. It's like, the increased crit rate isn't even, like, super great. Also to note, that's not even base crit, that is spell crit. So if you didn't know, the crit you are given by Recklessness is not the same kind of crit you are given if you're playing Paladin. When you're playing Paladin and you get that bonus crit from propping wings, that is base crit that applies to everything you're doing. Whereas Recklessness is spell crit, so it is only applying to your abilities instead of your base character. This can affect things like trinkets and damage procs and that kind of thing. So it actually makes it weaker than a normal, like a wings proc, or a wings for paladin. A bit of fun trivia there. But I do think what Warrior's really missing is like something where when it happens, you go, oh yeah, man. Like the Dragonflight tier set for arms, when you got a sudden death proc that also proc the Thunderclap that spread bleeds and did a bunch of AoE damage, that owned, man. That was great. Just put it in there. Put it on sudden death. Like literally, you could just put it in there, reduce the proc chance of sudden death a little bit, and then it would feel great to get. You would get the button, you would just bah. I think they could also change Ashen Juggernaut, so it only goes up to 5. They either need to make the stack duration. They just need to remove the kind of RNG that makes that spec being unfun to play. Because when you get a sudden death proc and you can either press sudden death or slam, you get into a lot of situations where it's actually numerically better to press slam and just sit on your sudden death procs because you want to continually extend your Ashen Juggernaut all the way into execute phase if possible. So I think that's like pretty bad gameplay. So I would definitely look at that. Maybe, I mean, you could do something kooky and crazy where, like, after you use a sudden death proc, your next rampage does fire damage that spreads from the main target or something fun. Something cool, something fun. I don't know. Make it a proc, make it feel good. Sudden death proc, rampage, sudden death proc, rampage, and you're just like, whoa, just doing all this damage. It would feel great, man. It would be meaningful. Your decisions would matter. It would do bonus damage from it. Like, you'd be using all of your buttons. Like, I think sudden death just needs to be buffed up a little bit. I think it could do wonders. I mean, even for prot, right? What if sudden death not only did a bit of damage, but I don't know, maybe gave you like an overshield or something defensive to where like, or did some AoE so you could use it in AoE situations and it would feel great. If you used a single target, it was a bit of a bonus. Maybe it would give you some kind of damage reduction for a small amount. So if you played around it smartly in raid, you could get additional damage reduction against like tank busters and stuff. I don't know. I think there's a lot of potential in really making sudden death interesting for each spec, as it's one of the only actual procs we have as warrior, and you could even make them thematically unique for the different hero talents as well. And I think it could do. I think it'd be really, really cool. But anyway, I have yapped enough. Our seismic reverberation will be bugged until it is not, and then when it is not bugged, when I find out, I'll let you know. But otherwise, enjoy a couple enjoy. I think it's like 5 or 6% maybe. I don't actually know how much it actually gives you, but enjoy the bonus damage while it lasts, because Lord knows we need it. Alrighty, thanks for watching. Have a good one. Bye bye.